Welcome to Rooted Realities, where honest talk meets soulful insight. This podcast will guide you through life's ups and downs, offering clarity, courage, and a gentle reminder to give yourself grace. I'm your host, Christmas Miller, holistic health practitioner, life coach, and spiritual mentor. With each episode, I'll blend ancient wisdom with modern insight to inspire you to stay accountable and empowered. So if you're ready to grow from the inside out, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi everyone, Christmas here, and thank you for joining me. Today, let's talk about something I've seen with so many people over the years, including myself. It's that moment when we think we've healed something, a past experience, an emotional wound, or a betrayal that still echoes when trust is needed. But suddenly, it all comes back up. And then we realize that maybe we didn't really heal the way we thought we did. So let's talk about true healing, real healing, and not the performative kind. And yes, there is a difference. And the thing is, most people don't even realize they're doing it. And it's not because they're being fake. They're just trying to get through it. Trust me, I know, because I've done it. You might not realize it, but sometimes what feels like healing is just a form of survival. We all go through the motions, not because we're trying to fake it, to make it, but because we're doing the best we can with what we got. And that's what I call unconscious performance. And a lot of people live in that space. So what does that actually look like? Well, you're functioning, you're holding it together. Maybe you've even convinced yourself that what happened doesn't affect you anymore. But behind the scenes, your body knows, it still remembers. Your reactions still flare up, and there's this quiet ache that never really leaves. You might say, "Oh, I'm fine." And that's because you really believe you are. You stay busy because silence feels like danger. You overexplain, overwork, overgive, and you call it being responsible or strong. You might even make jokes about the hardest things you've been through because it feels safer than telling the truth. And that right there, this kind of performance, it ain't fake. It's learned. It's inherited, modeled, reinforced, and even embraced by society. You all know what I'm talking about. Because the truth is, we live in a world that sympathizes with pain, but only up to a point. Other people's pain, well, that's too much, too messy, too inconvenient. So, you learn to perform strength. And not because you're dishonest, but because you're trying to stay safe. Keep your head above water, doing everything not to emotionally drown. You're trying to be acceptable, trying not to draw attention, and trying not to be a burden. And why? I'll tell you why. Because pain makes people uncomfortable. We're taught to hide our wounds, push through, and keep it moving. Now, you'll get sympathy for a little while, but eventually the unspoken message is, get it together. So you do, or at least you look like you do. But then there's the other side, conscious performance. That's the moment when you know you really haven't healed. But all you want is to be over it already. So what do? You start acting like you're okay because you're tired of being all in this. But you want to feel better now. No, you want to feel better yesterday. So you show up with all the affirmations, the mantras, the spiritual language, but deep down, you're still afraid, still hurting, still reacting in ways that don't line up with what you say you believe. And it's not because you're a hypocrite either. It's because healing is hard. That's the part they don't tell you. It takes time, effort, letting go, like really letting go. But sometimes it's easier to perform peace than to actually sit with the storm. And yes, you can be in the midway with your healing. You might be doing all of the healing practices, but you're still people pleasing. You're still ignoring the red flags. You're still staying quiet when you know you need to speak up because being liked still feels safer than being whole or alone. Or maybe you're one of those who are leading others in therapy, in healing spaces, or in spiritual work, but you're still neglecting the parts of yourself that's screaming for attention. But that's not failure either. It's a sign to stop performing and start getting real with yourself about what needs healing and what needs your attention for your overall well-being. You see, performance isn't new. And we human beings, we are good at it. Spectacularly so. And in all the best ways, too, not just the worst. But this didn't start with social media or spiritual influencers. It goes way, way back. But here's the difference. In many ancient cultures, performance had purpose. Take, for example, the ancients who used masks in their practices. They weren't worn to hide. They were used with deep intention and purpose. Masks, they were sacred. They represented connection with the divine, invoked protection, guided transitions, and held symbolic roles in both ritual and society. But when it came to healing, the real kind, nothing was hidden. Healing was about truth, awareness, presence, and it still is. It was about showing up fully, not for an audience, but for yourself, your spirit, and sometimes your community. Because healing wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. And there's no spiritual clarity without honesty. In many traditions, the work of healing was private, ceremonial, and deeply personal. You didn't present your healing, you entered it and let it change you in the quiet, in the fire, or in the stillness. And not just for yourself, but for the collective. Because your energy wasn't just yours. It belonged to the village, the tribe, the family, the future. So healing wasn't performative. It was participatory. And that's a major difference. But somewhere along the way, we all forgot what healing was really about. We stopped treating it as sacred. We started curating it, branding it, performing it, not because we're shallow, but because the world makes it really easy to confuse appearance with embodiment. But healing, it's still what it's always been: an inward journey, a sacred process, a return to wholeness, not a performance for public consumption. So maybe it's not about adding more tools or rituals. Maybe it's about getting quiet enough to hear what your spirit's actually asking for, and for you to finally give yourself permission to stop showing the world your progress and actually live your process. Because most of the time, we're not walking around saying, "Oh, I'm performing my healing, y'all. Look." No, it's more subtle than that. It shows up in our habits, our relationships, our silence, and in our reactions. So, what does this all actually look like in real life? You'll know you're in performance healing when you say you're over it, but your energy still shifts the moment their name comes up. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Or maybe you've got all the language, trauma, boundaries, triggers, self-care, but you still can't sit in silence without that internal tension creeping in. Or perhaps you teach boundaries, but you still over-accommodate, over-explain, and then feel guilty when you finally do say no. Or perhaps you're giving incredible advice to everybody around you, but deep down, you know you're not applying it to yourself. You might even be telling people you've forgiven, but your body still tenses up when you think about what happened. Or maybe you're out here posting about alignment and peace, but you're running on empty. You can't sleep, and you feel like your nervous system is always in fight or flight. Or maybe you're out here teaching, coaching, mentoring, or even counseling others, but privately, you're shutting down, trying to cope. You're managing emotional fatigue, or you're trying to stay functional in the middle of your own storm because your own pain is still very much alive. Or maybe you never gave yourself the time to heal. And it's hard. Oh, I know how hard healing is, because the healer isn't supposed to bleed, right? The healer's supposed to be superhuman and just keep going. But here you are, still hurting, still giving, still performing. Now, please, hear me clearly. This isn't about judgment, and it's not about guilt. This is about truth, because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. If any part of this feels familiar, it doesn't mean you've failed. What it means is that you're ready. You're ready to stop performing. You're ready to meet yourself honestly and move towards something real. Because survival, well, it served its purpose. But healing, that's how you rise. So what now? It's right there in front of you to see and acknowledge. Because once you see it, once you realize that maybe you've been performing more than healing, it can be hard to unsee. But that's not a bad thing. That's a beginning. This isn't about doing more. It's about being real with where you are right now. So I want you to pause for a moment and check in with yourself. not your goals, not your schedule, and not with what you're supposed to be doing right now. I want you to ask yourself, where am I still performing peace instead of practicing it? Where am I still talking about healing instead of making space to feel it, embody it, walk with it? Where am I still showing up for others while abandoning myself? I want you to start there because that's where your clarity is. That's where your alignment starts to return. And that's where true healing begins. And it will stick. And from there, you can choose differently. And you know why? Because you can. It's your birthright to choose well-being. That's what free will is truly about, or at least what it should be. It's about becoming consciously aware of the fact that this is your choice to make, and understanding how deeply that choice impacts your energy, your peace, and your path. It's about making decisions not from habit, not from fear, and not to keep the peace, but from presence, from truth, from knowing who you are and what outcome you want to live. And that's what I call making conscious decisions you can be happy with. Not because they're easy and not because they're polished, but because they're yours, fully chosen, fully known, and fully aligned. You don't have to keep pretending you're okay. And you don't have to perform strength to be worthy of love, support, or rest. And you don't have to carry your healing like it's a secret job no one's allowed to see. But you are allowed to still be in process and to lay down the mask. And most importantly, you are allowed to begin again, fully, honestly, and without shame. Because real healing isn't what you show other people. It's what you allow yourself to feel, to release, to reclaim. So if you're tired, not just physically, but spiritually, that's not failure. That's feedback. Feedback from your nervous system, feedback from your spirit, and feedback from the parts of you that's been carrying too much for too long. It's your inner truth asking you to slow down, to listen, to adjust, and not because you're broken, but because you're still becoming. Oh yes, there's so much potential alive and ready within each and every one of you. From the youngest to the oldest among us, you are infinitely capable of amazing things. So maybe today wasn't about fixing anything. Maybe it was about you noticing where you're still trying to hold it all together and letting yourself rest, even just for a moment. Because from that place, you don't just heal, you return. You return to clarity. You return to conscious choice. You return to your power. And you return to peace. Thank you for listening to Rooted Realities. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others find the show. Your support is greatly appreciated. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook for more updates and new content. Until next time, stay rooted and keep growing.